are genetically engineering organisms that in their case they're calling flora to do the work to generate or assemble in a way the kind of proteins that that you might say resemble cow's milk. I don't. That's where to go much further, you're going to completely lose 100% of, or 99% of typical consumer, right?
Yeah.
So, for me, all this is to say we are in a really massive disruptive revolution that has several different ways parts of the population are going to choose their future. So these are coexisting futures. I don't believe that there's any one future. I think we're going to have multiple futures. And some people are going to be very, and I think we're going to need, during the transition, we are going to need probably all of these futures. And I do think that animal food-based eating as a central part of a diet is going to be massively disrupted. I truly believe that. So where that shift goes to, I think, I'm a guy who's always lived on the edgy parts of California. So I have some of the most difficult customers in the world because they're exposed to every idea and every latest trend, and they become connoisseurs of all the various choices, right?
I see.
So I do think California is a great place to competitively exist. Not quite as I think China represents an even faster pace of operating change, but I also think that how these ideas are the depth to which these ideas are, how would I say, put together is sometimes just being learned. It's being the rate of learning in China is eclipsing, I believe, almost all of the U.S., but including California. But I also think that California is still an incubator, and for ag tech, the union of one of the most productive farming regions is Central Valley, where we have our plant, and Silicon Valley. Is generating the very interesting mashup of cultures. And it's one of the reasons I chose in the later part of my career to partner with a very traditional farming group to help bridge these ideas across the supply chain.
I mean, from what you were saying, you mentioned the mindset that you're implying on this company, so to partner with the farmers community.
Right.
So it doesn't sound really like. I mean, from the previous reports, the firm is always described as they call like beverage companies, new beverage companies, startups, but it doesn't really seem like that from what you're saying. I mean, what exactly are the products, right? They are mainly like coffee.
No, well, I mean, if you look at, of course, I am always somewhat in the future, so I can't speak to the next generation of products, but, we have very, so first, to tackle basic milk and say, okay, how can you process plants in a way differently so that it really becomes more enjoyable than milk? Have more variety, have more choices, have more nuance to it. Because, in the old days, depending on what you fed your cow, the milk might taste a little different, and grass-fed might taste a little different. But by and large, milk, it became milk. With plant milk, you already have, we have 5 different supply chains. We have almonds, cashews, oats, rice, legumes, and coconut. So then you add the different, you add cacao, or you add turmeric, or you add matcha, and then all of a sudden you have much more. And then you start talking about micronutrients like omegas or calcium, and some of the antioxidants that you get from other fruits that can be combined with these milks. And then you add microbiome, the fermentation process to deliver true probiotic functionality. So these are all things that, while they seem, and then cold brew, which is a complete revolution because it gave coffee in a friendly way to a much younger portion of the generation. And it allowed cold coffee to become something that was highly portable and highly available throughout the day without having to have an infrastructure around it. So the mobility, the mobile phone and the mobility of a cold brew, in your hand, went together. So a lot of what Califia has done is just recognize things like day parts or the disruption of the morning breakfast. You see, so people, they go out of their house in almost like 2 minutes now, and even cereal was, not enough. So people in California would pay $7, $8, $9, $10, $12 for a smoothie that had all these nutrients in it, but they knew, they could just grab and they would be done for the whole morning.
I see.
Right? So there's just the change in demographic had change in lifestyle, and just like computing, the personal computer, first the desktop and then the personal computer, and now just the handheld digital device. So we did that in 30 years. All through each decade represented basically another trend of that. So the way beverages are consumed, and also the way plants are now just thought of not as some funky substitute for the animal product, but actually as the preferred choice. And the animal is a second choice. So this is happening much faster than people think in the United States. And I observe China, the many mindsets in China very similar in the next gen allegory across those cultures.
Correct, you have mentioned China, but for now, Califia's products and also the business are mainly based in U.S., right? California.
Yeah, we have a number of what I would call beachheads in different parts of the world, and we clearly have an idea.
Can I just grab a bagel for like 2 minutes? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. All right.
Just like 2 minutes, like 30 seconds.
Okay.
Sorry.
So I just need to double check. So just let you know, so 5:45 meeting in the lobby. Royal Pass on Scotts. Royal Pass on Scotts. So in your hotel, when you're in the lobby, it's Jacket and Tiger. Also, we arrange an interview 10 a.m. on Friday. Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So, in the U.S. and also other parts of the world?
Yeah, so for example, Hong Kong. So we have a partner with Green Commons, and David and the Green who's helped start the Green Monday movement, is a distribution partner for us in Hong Kong. So
It's already a launch in Hong Kong.
yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, and
You mean like
high-end in some restaurants we have the barista blend, and this is what I was also going to talk a little bit about. Coffee. We will get to coffee in a second. But Hong Kong, we have a test in Japan. Mustafa's market here in Singapore is one of our largest customers in the whole company, and we have distributors in the Middle East. We are the number 2 selling plant milk in Sainsbury's in the UK. We have distributors throughout the Caribbean. So the company is not having a majority of sales outside of the United States. It's still, from a revenue standpoint, U.S. centric. But the adaptability of the brand elements between the shape of the bottle, the quality of the product, and the Califia, whatever it is, the aspects of the brand that people like, seems to be very adaptable to different cultures.
What about China? Do you have any plans on Shanghai? I mean, this market structure seems quite similar to Hong Kong, maybe? I'm not so sure from
Yeah. Well, I think you have, we would look at China not as a monolithic country, but we look at China as some city-states almost. And we look at the different distribution structures inside each of those cities. And we think there could be some retailing partners that we actually are exploring a lot of conversations with, because I think the people who are close to the consumer. Now we're talking about the emerging middle class and upper middle class, not the average working population. So it's people who have reached a point in their income where they are paying a little more for food is actually a desired, it's something that helps people graduate in their own sense of who they are. So we're very much learning, I would say, but I think there's a very exciting cultural exchange happening in that conversation, and then I think it's going to happen faster than people think, because the distribution systems of direct to the consumer through the last mile have already been solved in such a better way than in the U.S. even. Right? People are getting, in the major Chinese cities, ordering online and getting something brought directly to them in a very compressed period of time.
I see.
So those are still some of the most difficult challenges, and so that when something catches on and something grasps the imagination of the population, like the change is
explosive growth.
Very explosive, yeah.
I see. But you believe that, from what you're saying, is that you expect this trend or this shift, it will happen much faster, but